September 12, 1988, 6 p.m. Mount Carmel Mercy Hospital, Detroit, room 307. A 29-year-old man lies in bed. His stomach is taped with bandages, bullet wounds from 2 days ago. He survived a shootout at his car wash on 7 Mile, but now a cross and a .357 Magnum are his only company. The door swings open. A man enters wearing surgical scrubs, a mask, and a stethoscope draped over his neck. No one stops him. No security exists here. This is 1988 Detroit. Mount Carmel is a war zone. The man reaches under his scrub top and pulls a handgun. 2 shots hit the mark, fatal. Richard Maserati Rick Carter is dead at 6:01 p.m. The assassin exits exactly how he arrived. He stays calm, passing the nurses, hitting the elevator, walking through the lobby, and then he is gone. By morning, Detroit police have a prime suspect, Lodrick Parker. On the streets, they call him Ricky the Hitman. This is the man Rick shot 48 hours ago. This is the man with every reason to kill him. Parker will be caught and tried for murder. A witness will point him out. He will still walk free. But in 3 days, they bury Maserati Rick in a $16,000 coffin built to look like a Mercedes-Benz. Silver paint, spinning rims, and real headlights. Detroit's loudest dealer will leave the world just like he lived. This is the saga of Room 307, a tale of how childhood friends became deadly rivals. It is a story of loyalty, betrayal, and 3 murders that shattered an empire. The killer never paid. Richard Earl Carter was born in 1959. He grew up on the same block as boxing legend Thomas Hearns. By 18, Rick already had his first criminal conviction. He stole goods, then cars, eventually making enough cash to buy himself a brand new BMW. In 1982, Rick gets out and needs a job. He heads to the famous Kronk's gym. Tommy Hearns is a star. Rick starts as the towel boy, hauling water and cleaning up sweat. Within months, he is a bodyguard, meeting Sugar Ray Leonard and shaking hands with the promoter Don King. He manages his brother Greg's boxing career and meets Mayor Coleman Young. But Rick is watching the street. The real wealth is outside the ring. In December, federal agents arrest the kingpin Sylvester Murray. For a decade, Murray supplied everyone. Young Boys Incorporated, Pony Down, every dealer in the city. Coke, heroin, weed. The feds take Murray and 41 of his top men in a single night. The biggest organization is gone. Rick sees the opening. So does his friend Demetrius Holloway. By 83, they are moving heroin onto the east side. 3 years later, they own the territory. But Rick needs a certain kind of image. At 25, he buys a Maserati in Ohio and brings the convertible back to an east side club. Detroit had never seen one. He becomes Maserati Rick. The truth is, he always preferred a Mercedes. In 1985, Holloway finishes his prison sentence. Their partnership is official. Federal agents label them Kilo Men. They move massive weight with Johnny Curry, whose wife Kathy is the niece of Mayor Coleman Young. They have powerful ties, but Rick and Holloway hire 4 brothers to provide the muscle. Reginald Brown and his siblings, Bugaloo, Ghost, and Wizard. They are professional killers. They wear black jackets with best friends embroidered on the back. With armor and rifles, the best friends crew is linked to over 80 local deaths. Rick brings in 16-year-old Richard Wershe, who dates Curry's wife. They call him White Boy Rick. No one knows the kid is an informant. In 87, the Curry brothers are finally convicted. The east side is open. Rick and Holloway take the I-75 pipeline from Miami to Detroit. Investigators say they were the first to lock it down. Maserati Rick is now the main supplier. But empires fall when your childhood friends start wanting your seat. Rick was never subtle. He had a dramatic flair. He wore custom suits and diamonds, surrounded by a fleet of Mercedes-Benzes. Everyone in the Motor City recognized him. He was a gifted talker who could charm politicians and street dealers alike. A 14-year-old child dismantled this kingdom. Rick never saw it. Rick was tactical. He kept an official bungalow on Burwood Avenue in northwest Detroit. Zero flash. However, he hosted lavish parties at his high-end riverfront condo. His third location near East Jefferson and Alter Road was a military bunker. Steel doors and reinforced glass were mandatory. Rick knew his enemies required a literal fortress. One official noted Rick's crew had enough enemies to fill Tiger Stadium. How do they survive? By laundering millions of dollars, Rick scrubbed cash through Eastside hair salons and barbershops. His masterstroke was the car washes. An empty car enters the tunnel and exits carrying bags of cash. Who searches a trunk while a car is getting a soaping? Partner Demetrius Holloway stayed quiet. He ran operations from the Chalk and Q Pool Hall on 7 Mile. He owned Sports Jam. Foot Locker even considered buying those retail stores for tens of millions of dollars. It appeared legitimate. Meanwhile, Holloway kept a private jet fueled and ready for takeoff. He hit Vegas weekly. In Atlantic City, he gambled away millions in a single night. What followed? Total market dominance. Feds say Holloway owned 80% of the trade. Rick hired Boone for muscle. This 6'5" veteran was Rick's shadow. But Boone provided more than just physical protection. He confessed to 30 contract hits. Then, his brother was murdered while Boone was jailed. After a brief sentence, he emerged a different man. He walked to the feds and flipped instantly. By 2010, the History Channel labeled him America's most notorious gangster. 80 murders were documented. Another informant remained hidden. 14-year-old Richard Wershe Jr., the FBU, recruited this unsuspecting middle schooler. They gave him fake identification. They embedded him within the Curry organization and Rick's network. Kingpin B.J. Chambers witnessed Wershe's rapid ascent through the underworld ranks himself. He played as large as Maserati Rick. After 2 years, the feds simply abandoned him. Was it a setup? That betrayal proved final. On January 15, 1988, Wershe was caught with 8 kilos. Michigan's law mandated life without parole for over 650 grams. Herman Groman admitted Wershe helped dismantle the Best Friends gang. Yet, Boone Craft shares a much darker secret. He claims an inspector offered $125,000 to kill Wershe. The kid knew. Wershe knew which officers were dirty. Consequently, he would spend 32 long years in prison. He wasn't freed until 2020. Meanwhile, agents tracked Rick's supply flights to Miami. Holloway was arrested twice. He carried $32,000 once, then $92,000 later. The DEA and the FBI were both building massive federal cases against the organization. The net closed, but the streets reached Rick first. Enter Edward Hansard, standing 5'6". Why the name? People ironically called him Big Ed. Some say Rick's mother actually gave him that nickname. Others knew him as Eddie Money. He started selling marijuana sourced from his childhood friends. Those friends were Rick and Holloway. Ed watched them build empires and wanted a piece. By the mid-'80s, Hansard ran a major salon near Chrysler. He was no longer playing in the minor leagues at all. He cleared $54 million annually, moving hundreds of kilos of cocaine and heroin. His territory spanned from Detroit to Mississippi. Once a customer, Big Ed was now competition. In 1987, a salon argument turned explosive. Was it about a debt or territory? Hansard was invading Best Friend's turf without permission. Regardless of the spark, the fire started. Childhood friends became lethal enemies. Both possessed volcanic tempers and a shared love for automatic weapons. Police warned these two threatened every citizen in Detroit. Naturally, newspapers began tracking the carnage. Every public shootout and violent confrontation between Rick and Big Ed became a front-page story. Their first major battle happened at a chance meeting. Rick, Holloway, and Ed's soldiers exchanged fire. Hansard took bullets to the stomach, leaving a permanent scar. Rick and Holloway were responsible. Rick ordered 3 failed hits on Hansard. Ed fled to Yazoo City, Mississippi, but his massive cocaine operation never stopped. Maserati Rick was executed in his hospital bed by a man wearing surgical scrubs. Earlier, that hitman caught a gun charge and told the officer his plan. "I am going to take out Maserati Rick, and then I'm coming for you," he promised. Big Ed returned to Detroit and targeted Rick. Gunmen sprayed lead at Rick's mother's porch while she sat there with his 2-year-old son. Gunfire erupted in the quiet neighborhood. Both survived the attack, but the message was undeniable. 2 months later, Big Ed missed again, targeting the mother of Rick's child but spraying the neighbor's house after getting the address wrong. The violence was escalating, getting sloppy, and turning into a deadly personal vendetta. September 10th, 1988, at a car wash on Mansfield, Rick is there when Big Ed and Lodrick Parker corner him mid-morning. They called Parker Ricky the Hitman, Big Ed's most lethal enforcer who was quickly becoming the most feared name on the east side. Bullets flew. Rick took rounds to the stomach. Parker caught a bullet in his arm. Hansard was hit too. When police arrived, nobody talked. It was the street code. Rick was rushed to Mount Carmel Mercy for emergency surgery on stomach wounds that were critical but survivable. 2 days later, Parker entered room 307 in Dr. Scrub's. 2 shots finished Maserati Rick for good. Rick died at 6:01 p.m. on September 13th. Police named Parker as their prime suspect after an eyewitness placed him there. Parker went to trial. The witness identified him. Then the jury handed down an acquittal. He walked free on the murder, but his luck didn't hold past September 1989. He got life for firebombing and shooting Thomas Ty. Big Ed Hansard was jailed on gun charges in 1988. In May 91, a judge gave him 40 years for drugs and gun crimes. He served 27 years. He got out in 2016 and got busted for cocaine in 2023. The killer walked away. The rival did decades, but Rick's assassination remains an officially unsolved mystery. The Brown brothers were professional killers, charging up to $30,000 a hit. Names like Ghost, Wizard, and Bugaloo. 80 deaths were linked to them. Rick bankrolled everything, from the vests and rifles to the high-priced lawyers. They were his protection, but the price was rising. The Browns wanted to be the kings. They watched Rick and Holloway moving millions across the city and demanded to be partners, not just hired guns. Rick decided to bring the brothers into the drug trade, using his own pipeline to supply them. He connected them to Colombian Mike from Miami. The Browns became major players in the city overnight. Rick never asked Holloway's permission. Holloway only found out about the deal after the fact. Holloway never trusted them. Then Rick made the one mistake he could never take back. He gave Bugaloo Brown direct access to Colombian Mike, removing himself as the necessary middleman. Mike didn't care about history or loyalty. He only cared about the money, no matter who was buying. Rick's plug was now Bugaloo's plug. The Browns didn't need Rick Carter to be alive anymore. September 12th, 1988. 2 days after the car wash shootout. Room 307. One story says Parker killed him in Scrubs, but other sources swear the police arrested the wrong man and missed the real killer. They say Terrence Bugaloo Brown did it on orders from the bodyguard, Nate Boone Craft. That's the same man Rick trusted with his life. Either way, the result was the same. Maserati Rick was dead. Rick was pronounced dead at 6:01 p.m. The east side was now open for the taking. Best friends saw their opportunity for control, but Demetrius Holloway knew he was the next man on the list. If they killed Rick, they were coming for him. Holloway wasn't waiting around to be a victim. Days after the funeral, Holloway staged a kidnapping at a stand near Gratiot and I-94. Witnesses heard shots and saw a man screaming as he was thrown into a red car. It looked like Holloway. It sounded like him too. The cops searched for a body that didn't exist because Holloway was very much alive. He was deep in hiding, letting the streets believe he was already gone. Best friends thought they had won, but the other dealers were tired of the robberies and the hits. The war was on, and the best friends were finally starting to lose ground. Parker finally stood trial. A witness pointed him out as the man who pulled the trigger. That's the man who shot Maserati Rick, they said. The jury returned a not guilty verdict. A killer in a doctor's coat finished him, yet Parker walks. Cleared of Rick's hit, but justice has a way of returning. September 1989, convicted for firebombing Ty's home and shooting the couple. Life sentence. Rick's case remains cold. Is it really? The shooter is behind bars anyway. just for the wrong crime. September 16th, 1988, 4 days post-murder, Peace Chapel, Detroit. Clyde, Rick's brother, handled the service. He hired A.R. Leak Funeral Home, the same spot that buried Willie the Wimp previously. Willie Stokes Jr. rested in a Cadillac-shaped casket with functioning headlights and blinking taillights, costing $7,000. Clyde wasn't being outdone. That casket cost $16,000. Some claim $17,000. One source says $25,000 gold-plated. Regardless, it was bespoke. A silver finish designed to resemble a Mercedes-Benz exactly. A genuine Mercedes grille sat on front. The classic three-pointed emblem, BB, S rims, premium aftermarket wheels. Rick would have chosen for his cars. And the tires actually rotated spinning tires on a casket. Pure Detroit grit. Reports say the headlights functioned just like the Cadillac's blinking lights. The irony of the moment wasn't lost on a single person. They called him Maserati Rick, but he exited in a Mercedes. Thousands gathered. Official numbers aren't documented, but the wake was massive. An emotional, grand, elaborate service. People paid their respects. People came for the spectacle. Rick's legend was receiving its final coat. They buried him at Elmwood Cemetery. Historic Wayne County, Michigan graveyard. Final rest for thousands of Detroit's underworld figures. Detroit's powerful partnership royalty, the politicians, the entertainers, and street-controlling dealers. Rick joined them, even dying with dramatic flair. 21 years later, 2009, Aces magazine releases a documentary, Maserati Rick, which features his son, Maserati Rick Jr. Brothers Greg Carter and Big E tell the story, Preserving the Legend. 2010, another documentary, Demetrius Holloway, Last Man Standing, documents the growth of Rick and Holloway, the empire they built, the war that destroyed it. 2018 30th anniversary of Rick's death, The Gangster Report covers it. Scott Bernstein writes extensively about the saga, books, articles, keeping the name alive, but it is hip-hop that truly immortalizes Rick. 2017, Baldy James drops a track titled Maserati Rick, album titled House of Blues. Detroit rapper, paying tribute to a Detroit legend, G Twilight goes even further. The Maserati Rick song, parts 1, 2, 3, 4. Part 4 features Rick's son. Rick Jr. also has his own track 88 Money named after the year his father passed. Lil B references Rick in Death of Rap. Even BMF series mentions him. Black Mafia Family, Season 2, Hospital Scene. Southwest T says this won't be a Maserati Rick repeat. Everyone understands the meaning. Don't get executed in your hospital bed. The legend expands far beyond Detroit's city limits. Demetrius Big Meech Flannery, leader of the Black Mafia family, one of America's massive drug syndicates, allegedly took his moniker from Demetrius Holloway, Rick's partner. This story persists because it represents something. Detroit in the 1980s. The crack epidemic, violence, excess, spectacle. Rick's Mercedes casket became an icon, just like Willie the Wimp's Cadillac, peak 80s, peak Detroit, peak excess. One of the gutsiest gangland hits in Detroit history. Shot in a hospital, killer dressed as doctor. And zero people paid for the hit, but the myth it truly lives forever. Silver Mercedes, casket, spinning tires, three-pointed star. That's how Maserati Rick is remembered, not for his death, but for how he was laid to rest. Following Rick's murder, the Carter family placed one call. Demetrius Holloway, Rick's business partner and his childhood friend. Holloway understood the implications. If they hit Rick in a hospital bed, he was next. Days later, Holloway stages his vanishing. Hamburgers stand near Gratiot and I-94. Witnesses hear gunshots. They see a man thrown into a red car's trunk. It looks like a kidnapping. It looks like murder. Theater. Holloway is breathing. He flees to Las Vegas, marrying Wanda Jean Hardaway. Her brother, Chucky, was one of Holloway's top lieutenants. Bodyguard, now family, Holloway remains absent for months, allowing the streets to think he is dead. September 17th, 1990, 2 years and 5 days post Rick's death, northeast Detroit, right outside a home. Clyde Carter arrives in his pickup truck. Rick's oldest brother, another dealer in the Holloway organization. His girlfriend Patricia Scott is with him, so is their 1-year-old son. They step out of the truck, a gunman opens fire. Both Clyde and Patricia were slain. The baby was left untouched. A killer snaps his fingers over a fresh corpse and whistles while walking toward the Detroit police headquarters. Detectives view this as a territorial war for Rick and Holloway's remains. Clyde's murder is never solved. 3 weeks later, 4 p.m., October 8, 1990, 1247 Broadway, Demetrius Holloway is shopping. $17,000 cash, designer socks, a gun. He is relaxed, browsing, and totally caught off guard. He is picking out clothes when Lester Milton walks inside. Little Les heads straight for the counter where Holloway stands. Milton pulls a pistol, 2 shots, fatal. Holloway drops. Milton snaps his fingers, says got him, and turns. He walks out whistling. Calm, no rush. Outside, his brother Tommy waits in the BMW getaway car, engine idling. They vanish before sirens start. It is even more brazen than the hospital hit and happened 2 blocks from headquarters. Broad daylight in downtown Detroit. 10 years later, federal authorities finally convict both Lester and his brother Tommy Milton. FBI records suggest Benji Concaid hired them. Another rival, another enemy. This timeline reveals the death of an empire. September 12th, 1988, Rick dies. September 17th, 1990, Clyde dies. 749 days later, Holloway falls. 21 days after Clyde, 791 after Rick. In 25 months, 3 leaders die, and it is over. Where are they now? Eric Parker got life, not for Rick's murder, for other crimes. Ed Hansard, released 2016. Police arrested Ed again in Ohio, 2023, on cocaine charges. White boy Rick Wershe earned freedom in 2020. Nate Boonecraft, an FBI informant, admitted to 30 contract killings, yet he never faced a single charge. Tracy Cowan, Rick's girlfriend, served 20-plus years. Chucky Hardway, Holloway's brother-in-law, did 17 years before his release. Gunmen killed Chucky days later in 2007. Rick's case remains unsolved. Parker was acquitted, no others charged. The most public gangland execution in Detroit history went unpunished, but the myth remains. Demetrius Big Meech Flannery's namesake. The Black Mafia family took that nickname from Holloway. The BMF series and documentaries keep this story in rotation. Rappers still shout the names. Detroit, 1980s, a violent era defined by crack, excess, and dead kings. Maserati Rick represents the whole story. Shot in a hospital, buried in a Mercedes, and his killer walked free. That is room 307. Childhood friends, mortal enemies, betrayal, murder, a legend that refuses to stay dead.